Hello, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our latest session of QABC. We've got a great session coming up for you today. We've got, you can probably see one of the little frames, we've got James here with us today. So let's crack on. As we've always got, you can find us on our Twitter at QA Beginners Club, Instagram at QABC_MCR, and also on our Facebook channel as well, QA Beginners Club on that. And to always go through our code of conduct. QABC is always a safe place to be, always will be a free event, unless myself, Ashley, or Ken ask you for some money. Absolutely right to say no and question that. Everybody is always welcome. Please be respectful to others, and as some talks from people may have difference of opinion, but it's always good to be respectful to that. If you do think something's out of tone or been said that's out of turn, please report anything to Ashley, Ken, or myself, and we shall look into it. Breaking any of these rules will lead to future banning from future events. Of course, we don't want that, and touch wood, we've not had to do that yet, and we can hope that we keep that going. Just a big thank you to Searchability for their continued support for QABC and their loan of the lovely Zoom that we're going through right now. So thank you very much for that. And further ado, I'm now going to hand over to James to take us through his journey to becoming a QA tester. And over to you, James.
Thank you very much, Chris. Much appreciated. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for your time this afternoon. I'm now going to attempt to share my screen. Can you see? Okay,
yeah, I can see.
Perfect. Firstly, of course, thank you to the organizers. Thank you to you all for taking your time to attend today. I know it's like a weekday evening, there could be other stuff you're doing, but yes, thank you for attending. Just a little tiny bit about me. So I've been a tester for approximately 9 years. I come from more of a customer service background, as opposed to like a, I guess, more techie kind of background. And my experience in my various roles has been across the healthcare, pharma, and fintech industries. So that's just a little bit. And just before I go into like my actually becoming a tester, I just wanted to give a little bit of context, just kind of like, I guess the entrance of how I started that journey. So basically in school, college, after college, didn't really know what I wanted to do in terms of like my career. So studied like music business, graphic design, bit of journalism, just a bit of everything basically. And I had this crazy dream that I would make it famous one day. So I didn't really care about education, to be honest, which is obviously, looking back retrospectively, is very terrible. And yeah, as I've mentioned, I was kind of moving job to job. So I had a construction job where I was kind of breaking things with a sledgehammer, installing chimneys and all that kind of stuff. Then I was an estate agent for some time. So showing people around apartments, trying to be the best salesman I could be, which is really horrible and cringe, because I'm really not good at that. Cooking paninis. So yeah, I worked in a cafe as well. So you can see there's a kind of trend here, you know, like just going job to job, didn't really kind of know what I wanted to do, but of course rent needs to be paid, responsibilities and all that jazz. What happened was, in the company I was working for, I got made redundant. And I basically, during this period of jumping job to job, I did some temporary work for 1 month, some temporary admin work for one of my friend's startup companies. At that time, there was probably about 5 members of staff, 5 or 6. They just needed someone to come in and do some admin stuff. So I did that for a month and kind of got to know them. So after losing one of my jobs, I had a period of about a couple months where I was kind of looking, struggling a bit. And one of those directors of that startup company that I worked for gave me a call and said, look, looking for a job, would like to work with you again. We need someone on a help desk because we're building these products and we don't have anyone we've got support contracts, but we haven't necessarily set up the help desk yet. So of course I accepted, excuse me. And I joined the company as a help desk operative. So it was basically, I'm only mentioning this, I know it's kind of not related to testing, but just to show you kind of like the kind of, kind of like person I was at that time. So I was like really shy, really kind of reserved. I didn't really like customer facing work. Based on all the experience I had, it was kind of like something I really didn't favor. So when I joined the company as a help desk operative, taking phone calls from customers, I found it really difficult. And yeah, there was like this one period where there was my manager literally said, let's do a role play. I'm going to call you in 5 minutes and you basically answer the call and then I'll do a role play as an angry customer. And literally I froze. So imagine like the manager's sitting across from me and the phone's just ringing and I'm just sitting there trying to avoid it. Really bad. I'd cringe to this day. Yeah, and then basically whilst I was there, they asked if I wanted to be enrolled on a customer service level 3 apprenticeship. I think there was a scheme where companies get some help and also the staff members obviously get some qualification out of it. So I thought, if I'm doing a customer service role, I may as well get a qualification out of it. So yeah, so I got assigned a tutor and we used to do like she would kind of monitor my phone calls, take notes, give me tips on how to like certain language you use, listening techniques. There was a lot of communication skills that were kind of covered throughout the modules. And this is where my kind of first milestone on the journey begins. When I joined the company, they were building a rota tool, a web-based rota tool for clinics in hospitals. So they were planning their rotas. In various hospitals are kind of a bit behind in terms of their, let's say, technology. So they were using at that time, I think it was IE8, Internet Explorer 8, something that at that time Microsoft wasn't even supporting because some of the bugs like would contact, Microsoft and we can't support you shit, we don't support this browser. So yeah. So they had a web-based rota system arranging the rotas for their clinics. And they deployed it live in one of the hospitals. And we started to get tickets come through. A lot of these tickets were like login issues, your typical help desk stuff. But then we would get tickets around like, I want to use a tool to do this thing, but the tool doesn't let me. So then it will become sort of like a change request and you kind of learn the user behavior and the use cases at different levels. You had senior users that would want to manage other users. They can't delete users or they can't kind of deactivate them, etc. So I was kind of learning about the tool. And because it was very fresh, new, they didn't have a tester. So I was kind of like first line defense for all the bugs, all the complaints, all of the issues. So that was the first milestone for me, especially as I started to write bug reports for the developers or developer at that time. So that's the first key milestone for me on the help desk. And then it got to a point where there were so many bugs coming in that they thought You know what? Let's get James to do some testing. I mean, I say testing, it's more kind of just clicking around. I think that's what they actually mentioned as well, to just click around and make sure things work. So that was the next milestone for me. The bugs increased, you know, which means kind of more noise from up above, and they introduced a process where on the help desk they used to say to me, "Okay, we're going to deploy this thing live. You might get some tickets come in." So when they used to tell me that, I used to think, well, I better check this thing so that I know what's going on when the users call me. So then that become a part, like kind of like a process. I would just test some changes before they deployed them. Basic checks, as I've mentioned here, just clicking around. And what this did do was open up doors of some collaboration. So they would aim to deploy something, and they would speak to me about a particular bug or a particular change request that's come through the help desk, and I would explain it to them. And they would then go and develop based on that kind of user behavior and use case that I've mentioned, as well as allowing me to work closely with the project manager, because all the noise was coming through the help desk. Senior members were kind of complaining to other senior people at the company I worked for. Excuse me. So the project manager kind of worked closely with me on the change requests that were coming through as well through the help desk. So that was kind of another key milestone for me. And it got to the point where the company decided they needed a dedicated tester. I think they hired another 2 developers as the work increased, and they offered me the opportunity. So I was, to be honest with you, enjoying testing, even though at that time it wasn't really deep testing, you could say. I was just kind of clicking around, or what if a user does this? I know these kind of users do this stuff. And again, it was just basic kind of checking and some edge cases here and there, pretty basic stuff. But the company basically offered me the opportunity and said, you know, do you want to be our dedicated tester? Of course, I accepted the opportunity, but they said, look, on condition that if we put you on this training course and you know, you've got to pass the exam there, because in some of their contracts, the clients would like to know what kind of certification that the QA department has. So it was kind of a necessary thing for the company to have not just someone testing, but someone you know, qualified per se, like with the stamp of approval from ISTQB. So yeah, I kind of agreed to that. It was the first time I had kind of had any idea about studying testing. I didn't even know there was courses for this stuff. So there was a book, which is sort of like an ISTQB handbook that my manager purchased for me to study. And I started to go through the book and study it. And it has like example questions and all that kind of stuff. So attended the course. It was 3 days. I found it to be, again, I'm coming, like I was literally had no experience in testing. I had no idea kind of what it was as a role, even like different techniques, etc. So I found the course to be a good introduction to testing for me. When they kind of go through the syllabus and they hand you the big thick handbook with all the kind of modules and stuff, I didn't even know that testing was that kind of skill. So again, as I mentioned here, it's kind of it kind of showed me that testing is not just randomly checking. There's a process, there's planning, there's different techniques you can use and different skills. So that was nice. That was the first time I was kind of introduced to testing at that level. And it was also the first time I was meeting other testers, the other students present, the instructor. They were all sharing their experiences, different things they disagreed with in the syllabus, but kind of still taught it, put their own spin on it. It was really nice. I found it to be anyway. So of course, yeah, that was a milestone for me. So from 2015, I was hired as the dedicated tester. Through that time, there was a lot of on-the-job learning. I found that a lot of the material that I had studied was completely not the reality in my workplace. I was not involved in any requirements gathering, any kind of planning meetings. I was getting all of the work at the final stage, probably like a week out from the deadline. Um, and they had a kind of process where if their clients would they would have a payment system where they take 50% upfront and then 50% on completion of the development work. And of course, when you're giving the work to the tester a week before you're hoping to receive some, final payment, the tester really becomes a bottleneck and a pain at times, especially as you find more bugs. So there was a lot of on-the-job learning there, disregarding things that didn't really apply to my context, reading blogs, books, Twitter, all that kind of stuff. And the company was growing, building more products. There were more staff, so it grew from about 5, 6 to about 25 to 30 people within the space of like a year. It was rapid growth. They're really successful now, the company. So we needed to hire another apprentice. So testing responsibilities were just building up. And as we were giving out kind of hardware internally, the IT requests, because I used to, on the help desk, also deal with kind of like first line IT requests in the company as they grew. So we hired an apprentice and my role changed to a QA lead. And they wanted me to kind of coach and train this apprentice up where I can in relation to testing. It was my first time ever coaching and managing. I was watching a lot of reading a lot of stuff around management and coaching and really trying to develop this person take them under my wing, training them on the products, coaching them as to where they can go in their career in terms of testing. And the apprentice really took to it, and basically after about a year and a half to 2 years, they kind of left the company and joined another company as a senior test engineer. So they really took to it and they really studied hard and really got practicing on different websites and stuff like that. So I'm kind of really proud of that. That was another milestone. And even now I'm still in touch with him, and we kind of, catch up every now and then to touch base. And he's doing really well in his career. So yeah, that's really that's another milestone in my short career so far. So yeah, 2017. So at the company I was at, it got to a point where I was the QA lead, but I'm the only tester now. The apprentice is gone, but I'm the QA lead, and I've got no one that I'm leading. So yeah, just kind of, it was all more about processes and making sure that I'm getting in early in the requirements gathering. And I started to feel like I was kind of hitting a ceiling in my role. There were things, because of the nature of the industry and regulation and stuff like that, there were things I feel like I just couldn't change. So some requirements, meetings, for example, it's like, these are the requirements. And then you would think about kind of potential risk, how you would test, but there was nothing you could change on that requirement. It's just set in stone. It's signed off. It's done. There was no kind of, but when I would read books and watch YouTube and follow Twitter, and people would say, like, they would speak as if like this is an abnormality, which in my opinion it kind of was, but that's just how it was. So during this time I thought, okay, I've got some training budget, let's book some coaching in, and they can come in and see where the processes are weak, see where we can improve things. And I basically got in touch with Alan Richardson, who's the evil tester he's known as on Twitter and online. So he came down for 2 days, and he basically said something interesting. So within the first hour or so of him being there, he was saying, so I told him we've got stand-ups and we work to the agile methodology. And he said, I can just kind of tell you guys are not really agile. But he just knew he wasn't on a project with me. He just knew something in the air. So I kind of raised my eyebrow, and I was thinking all this time, I was thinking we were agile because we had stand-ups and we had requirements meetings. Again, there was a lot I didn't know. But when he said that, it kind of got me thinking. I started to think, look, the coaching was great, sitting down with him, spending lunch with him, just hearing his thoughts. It was really beneficial. After a few months, I started to think, look, maybe I need to branch out here. Maybe I need to get more hands-on with other testers, maybe like more developers. So obviously, I'm sure everyone knows, like on LinkedIn, it's a good place to kind of for job opportunities and stuff like that. So someone messaged me about a job opportunity at Smart Pension. So it was just for a QA engineer role, and I was QA lead. So I was thinking, okay, do I step down in terms of the role title? How's that going to kind of look on my CV? But then I'm not really leading anything anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So I kind of went for it, had a call, and yeah, I've got to say, even though they did hire me, which I was so shocked about with the recruiter after, in my opinion, I did absolutely terrible in the interview. Like I was so used to the waterfall methodology of testing at the end of a project, and basically doing it all in one testing instance, getting all your bugs, all your test reports, and then handing it over, and then they fix it, and then you retest, etc. But when I turned up to the interview, of course, on my CV, I've put agile experience, because I've done a few stand-ups. But in my interview, it was so bad. It was so first they were kind of, getting to know me, and I think they could see, because I've always had a passion for testing. I do feel that close link with it, the way it's kind of given me that career, given me something that I'm passionate about, gives me something that exercises my mind every day. So I think maybe they saw that passion, but then when it got to the more technical side, so one of their tasks, one of the parts of the interview was an exercise, technical exercise. And it was essentially a ticket, a Jira ticket, and you treat this particular task as if you're in a refinement session. So you've got a Jira ticket there, there's some information, kind of vague, but they want to see kind of how you're questioning, where's your thinking, how would you test it, etc. So he said to me, it was the QA manager and another QA. He said, so we want you to refine this ticket. And when he said ticket, I was like, ticket? What you mean, like a support request ticket? Is it a change request? He said, no, it's a ticket. It's a part of a feature. It's like a story. Story? What do you mean story? I just was completely clueless. But I was honest. And then he explained, like, okay, what the ticket was, how the ticketing system, breaking work into smaller chunks. So they explained that, and I was like, okay. And then it was a basic password security, like basically, so it's like pen test feedback. They've got this is the feedback they've given regarding your password policy. And it's stuff like, it needs to be at least 8 characters. It needs to have, can't be in this thing. And one of the parts of the test, this is where it kind of went downhill for me. One of the parts of the requirement says the password that you enter cannot be part of the top 10,000 most common passwords used. So there's a common password dictionary. Whatever password you put cannot be in this list. So he asked me, how would you test that? And I just was like, oh, what? I just really had to, of course, you've got the nerves of the interview as well. And it was like, I think he even mentioned something like, "Come on, it's in the ISTQB, this stuff," and it just kind of really, it was really tough for me. And in the end, after thinking about exploring different ways, just thinking out loud, I just literally said, "Do you know what? I can't do this. I literally didn't complete the task." Um, really upset, really disappointed. They left. Then the second half of the interview started, which was a culture interview. So it's a lot more relaxed, just getting to know me, my hobbies, what, kind of person I am, etc. That went nice, really well. I just thought nothing to lose. Just anyway, returned back to work because I did the interview as part of my lunch break and booked a bit of time off as well. Went back to work, really disappointed. The recruiter then called up to give me feedback, and just like, oh, here we go. And they were like, they really liked you. They liked that you had a blog. They really saw the passion. They're willing to give you a chance, etc. And they made me an offer, and I was really
Your interview, do you just kind of get back a little
okay.
past it,
Yeah, sure,
and then I can kind of splice it from there.
sure.
I'm so
Sure.
sorry.
No. My apologies. I think that's from Twitter. I really apologize for
It's okay.
that. So basically, I got the interview. I had an interview on the phone. They kind of liked me, what the answers I was giving. They asked for a face to face. Had the face to face interview, and as I mentioned, it just went really, really bad. They had a technical task which they um, they were kind of mentioned that it was a refinements exercise in the form of refining a ticket. I didn't even know what a ticket was. I was just used to work being kind of developed in one big chunk, but this was a short user story to improve password security. And it was really bad. There were certain techniques they were looking for. So one of them, as I mentioned, was uh, so the password has a few requirements. One of them that was really troublesome for me was that this password that you enter cannot be from the top 10,000 most commonly used passwords. So there's a common password dictionary. And they was asking me, how would you test this? How would you make sure that it's not from this list? And it really got me coupled with the nerves, and it was just really difficult. It got to the point where I kind of was out of options, and I just said, look, nothing's coming to mind other than a few things I mentioned out, but I didn't kind of pursue fully. And I just said, look, I can't finish it. But I was able to give an estimation. That was another part of the task. So ticket content, the technical execution of it, and then estimation. So I kind of gave it a decent, like I think it was like 1 day, 2 days tops. Again, they were looking for the Fibonacci sequence, like t-shirt sizing and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't know that, so I just gave the timings. So I thought it just went really bad. One thing I would mention, the reason that I really thought I didn't get it is because at the end, the QA manager said to me, when you speak to the recruiter after the call, don't tell them that there's a test because we don't want them to tell other candidates. So I already thought, okay, he's planning for the next candidate to come. So I was kind of, yeah, it was done. But yeah, they called me back after apparently they liked me and gave me a chance and hired me, which was another milestone because I was really out of depth in this new company. It was the first time working in an agile company that was kind of, I guess, truly adopting agile. Work developed in small chunks, scrum teams as opposed to, dev team over here, QAs over here, or in my case, QA. So the first day I joined, as I mentioned, was they had a retro, and I just didn't even know what kind of meeting it was because I thought it was like a P1 post-mortem or something. They were talking about the things that went bad in the previous sprint. And I had to ask the agile lead after and say, like, I can see this retro meeting. that's in my calendar, but it's there every 2 weeks. So I didn't understand. And then he kind of schooled me on what a retro was and all the different kind of agile ceremonies. As I mentioned, there were no more kind of big bang releases. So building something in a building a whole new feature, giving it to the test team, testing it, it's giving the go ahead that it's fine to deploy, and then you got to stay after working hours when no one's using the tool and do some testing just to make sure everything's going fine. So there were quite a few late nights actually. Again, team collaboration was a key thing as well. I had a bad habit of I kept apologizing to the engineers when I would ask for their help, because in my previous role we were so separated in our work that when you would ask questions, you were literally disturbing them. So you'd have to say sorry, and they'll take their headphones off. Close Spotify, pause it, but here it was just like I kept saying, sorry to disturb you," and it was like, "Stop saying sorry. That's what we're here to. We're here to help you. Like, relax." So it was just a big shock, but a very nice. Yeah, it was really a learning experience. That's definitely one of the key milestones. And I actually felt empowered as a QA. I was actually brought in refinements. I could shape the refinements. I had a voice. There was a less emphasis on test reporting and test cases. So like before, I was writing test plans, test cases. No one was reading them. I was just no one was signing them off. I was just making these huge documents subject to change, scrap it, write it all again. None of that was happening. It was kind of a more exploratory testing approach. It was like I said, it was just a key milestone. And also there were a big testing team as well, QA community for around 30 to 40 QAs. So yeah, it was a real turning point in my career. And I'm still learning. I'm still at that company, still learning. I'm now a senior QA there. So I've got a few more responsibilities working in different domains. And my focus moving forward, both work, career related, and just general like testing related, are the first one is basically to support QA growth. So in my company, I'm hoping that I can start to get more involved. Well, I am starting to get more involved in onboarding new QAs, interviewing candidates, and also coaching QAs that kind of want to move up through the various career paths that we have here. And just from a community perspective, like giving back, I feel like QA Beginners Club is an excellent initiative. It's really something that I would love to do as well, or get involved with, helping testers, especially new testers, because when I look back and see where I would have loved to just speak to someone about just different things that go on in testing and just have that person to talk to. I had developers that I could speak to, but again, they saw from the ones I spoke to QA as being like a platform to something else. Like if you want to be a developer, start out as testing, which this developer did, and then you can kind of get into development through that way, maybe become a project manager. It's like treating it kind of like an entry point to other things. And yeah, and helping those that are interested in pursuing testing careers. I've got a few friends that kind of want to get into it. They ask me questions. I kind of sit down with them, share material with them, and I really feel a passion for that as well. Of course, self-learning, we always have to learn. We always have to try and improve. So I'm hoping to enroll in more courses, attend my first conference, whenever that may be. I'm not sure yet. And get through the ton of books I've purchased. I've got a good few testing books I still haven't read. And learning from other testers in the community is such a fruitful community online, especially. And another focus is to actually shape the QA role. I think in the industry, there's a lot of talk around like, do we assure quality? Can we assure quality? Are you a tester? Are you a QA? Are you a test engineer? There's like all these kind of discussions going on. And, some are saying, "You'll never do this stuff and you should always do this." And I don't think it's that black and white. I think if we can have a more open approach, and I would love to play some role anyway in shaping what a QA is and what we do in our role, especially for people that don't do our role as well. And in our company, they've announced that they kind of want to adopt a shift left approach to QA. So I'm also kind of really reading up on that, looking into that. And yeah, and then hopefully when those changes do happen, just reflect on this role change. Does it fit? Does it work for me and my team? Are there other companies doing this stuff? That kind of stuff. So those are my focuses moving forward, which I do hope to embark upon, or some of them I am already. But yeah, just thought I'd mention that as well. And my tool of choice, as I was asked to kind of briefly touch upon, is kind of it's very simple, very basic, but I found it to be the most helpful thing for me, and that is a note-taking software in some shape or form, preferably cloud-based, because I lost a good few notes on the Notes app on my Mac when I changed machine. But well, Notes is cloud-based, but yeah, they were saved locally. And so preferably I kind of use Evernote or the Google Sheets, Google Suite. I think it's just called Sheets, I think. Yeah, so I just thought I'd share some examples of how they can be beneficial. Are you still able to see my screen? Okay, excellent. So I've got a few examples here. So when I first joined the role, I was using the Google in-house software, and was putting all my notes into Google. Again, I kind of did it in my own little style here, just put my various scenarios, notes and questions. So all the greens were like, yep, that looks good on the eye. That means it's passed. So anyone reading them will kind of, it's a very, very straightforward, simple ticket. Just an example of how we can use that. And of course, it saves export as a PDF. If you work in a company where you need to kind of store your test notes or upload your testing feedback, etc., export as PDF, attach it to the ticket. It's really good as opposed to pasting it into the ticket, because I always feel like there's formatting issues there. And I've got some examples of using Evernote. So Evernote, you can copy like code snippets, you can paste screenshots, and this is essentially just an attachment from one of the tickets. Again, you can just very simple, straightforward, some database stuff happening and things happening on the front end, etc. And then just kind of attaching that evidence. I feel like note-taking has really helped me focus my testing. If I go and branch off exploring somewhere, I can go make some notes, return back to where I was, because my memory is really bad. And it just really helps shape my testing when I'm testing it in a particular like testing session, you could say. So Evernote and Google are kind of like my go-tos for note taking. And sometimes I use the Notes app, but just kind of any note-taking tool that's cloud-based that can kind of export your notes as a PDF without breaking any formatting, any code snippets, etc. So you can see there as well some more code snippets there. So yeah, I think tool of choice, Evernote, Google. I haven't really used any other tools, to be honest. I've used Sublime Text to take some notes, but again, putting screenshots and stuff like that I'm not too familiar with. So that's pretty much my tool of choice. That's my journey briefly. So yeah, I think that's it, really. I think the next slide is, yeah, just some contact details for me, and then a thank you. So yeah, I think I'll end it there. Yeah, and yeah, any questions, please just do ask.
Is anybody got any questions for James while we're here?
Yeah.
Like again, gone. Yep.
So I've got a few questions. So James, fantastic presentation.
Oh, thank you.
And it was really, really interesting as well. I was going to ask, when you've been testing, what is the most sort of challenging thing you've encountered with whilst testing during your career so far?
I would say like it's always been a challenge for me to like demonstrate kind of like what I do as a tester with other developers.
Yeah.
I've kind of not all of them that I've worked with, but I always kind of really struggle with the engineers that are kind of like, I guess, have the opinion that what's the purpose of QA? You know, I'm performing TDD. There's nothing to test here. Look, I've put it in the ticket. There's nothing to test. So therefore, I just feel like sometimes we get a bit sidelined in QA. And that's always been a challenge for me. And I always feel the challenging part is I always feel on the back foot because of my knowledge. Like my technical knowledge compared to the engineer is like, it's not close. So sometimes when they go into the technological detail or the techie details of why it doesn't need QA, and I feel a bit out of kind of depth, and then I'm kind of fully handing over my trust to the engineer, which is, I guess, fine. But as a tester, I do like to maintain a kind of a little bit of independence. And when that happens, I do find it quite challenging, I must say.
Yeah, I absolutely empathize with you there. It's like I think even on your Twitters, what I responded to is like it's good to have like that handover. It's like literally a second pair of eyes, because once you kind of looked at something for so long, you don't see anything outstanding. Again, that's where we kind of come in to have that different perspective. It's like, what about this? Have you looked at that? What about that? Have you tried this? No. Okay, let's have a look. And it's always kind of, okay. But you said you do need to have that trust, but that trust kind of needs to be built over time. But yeah, it's like I genuinely love working with developers. But again, yeah, it's like sometimes they're just like, oh, I don't need to do this. I do that. It's like, yeah, you do. Sorry. No, yeah, no, I absolutely empathize with you on that one. You got another question, Andy? Or does anybody else want to kind of answer into that one as well? Okie dokie. Yeah. Andy, what's your other question?
With the API testing, which you've been learning as well, is it Postman you've used or something like Swagger? Just out of curiosity, and what kind of videos or online materials have you used to sort of help learn API testing?
So we didn't use APIs in my first role. So for the first chunk of my career, completely clueless until Alan Richardson came on board, and he kind of just I think it was Swagger he was using, and he kind of briefly gave me an introduction into API testing. And then when I moved to the current role that I'm in now, we use Postman.
Yeah. Thank you.
No worries.
Yeah, it's like I started using Postman a lot more now. It's like when you first see it on the offscape, it's like, what am I looking at? Once you know what kind of post, get, delete, what environment needs to be set, yeah, it can literally be your API best friend. But again, with anything, you need to use it rigorously and continuously for that muscle memory.
Yeah,
the kind of standing. That's why I didn't use Postman to 2 to 3 years. Starting to use it more now. I just looked at it, kind of went, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, a note for Mikhail. Andy, there's a really cool tutorial by, it's very interesting, by Free Code Camp on YouTube for API testing using Postman. Yeah, if you got the link, please post it in here. That'd be brilliant. If not on the Meetup group as well. then we've all got visual, that'll be perfect.
Thanks for sharing.
No, thank you very much.
I have a quick question. If
Go for it.
I'm just really curious about what you were mentioning about the password exercise in your interview. You mentioned something about the Fibonacci sequence. I'm not sure if that was a joke or it was something, some hidden tech behind how to solve that question. But how would you solve that question if you have been able to gain the knowledge after the fact?
Yeah, so I actually asked them that question at the end of the interview. I said to them, so how would you solve it? And then he kind of just mentioned a few things very briefly. So the way it was like 10,000 commonly used passwords, kind of like file in a CSV format. And I initially kind of was mentioning, okay, we can put it in the DB, perhaps automate the bulk of it. And he said, look, no tools. There's no automation, no tools, no nothing. How would you just have the spreadsheet? How are you going to test this just like manually? And that's where I got kind of stuck. I started tripping up. So the technique that you could use is like equivalence partitioning. So you could like get those 10,000 and group them according to shared characteristics, and then hence maybe shorten that number quite a bit. And they've got like a sample of the file. So it kind of, as you start doing that, it really, really shrinks down and you can cover a bit more ground in a more feasible manner. So yeah, that's kind of the technique, the preferred, I mean, not preferred, but I would say the one I would suggest after doing some research and stuff on it.
It really seems like a problem-solving question rather than a technical question once you've explained it that way.
Yeah, exactly.
When you started mentioning about using a database and stuff, you would put all the passwords, right? You're not solving the problem, just extending the problem, I guess.
Yeah.
Thank you for the answer.
No worries, no problem.
I didn't know there was a comprehensive list of the 10,000 most common passwords. So that's actually kind of good to know. Yeah, it's like I've thought about that question. I would have kind of like done a finder if I had. What was the question? Was like, make sure you're not using one of these 10,000. I would have probably done like created my own, but then done the finder to make sure that they're not found as well. Then done my own list. But again, as mentioned before, there's so many different ways they can do it. So that again, that's why it's good to have someone else a second pair of eyes from a different perspective as well.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think there's one way to approach it. Yeah.
Okay, I know after this, I'm probably going to go and look for that list to make sure I'm not using any of them on any of my accounts. Do we have any more questions? Please take advantage.
Just a quick question as well. So in a way, your journey started if you weren't to be already in a tech company, how would you recommend someone trying to get in? Like, what tip that is something, I guess beyond, try and learn this tool, try and, check what are the most popular programming languages, whatever, right? Because when you mentioned the evil tester, I never heard about it. So I really quickly Googled it, and it was talking about something about manual testing being dead. It was a very superficial look I had. So I was wondering if what should be someone's focus, right, when trying to get a job? Is it focusing on automation? Is focusing on the material from the ISTQB stuff enough? What do you think?
Kind of, I'm going to do that cliche, it depends thing. Sorry, I'm really sorry. But yeah, like me, for example, when I wanted to get more, there was a point in my career where I was thinking, I need to learn automation. Everyone's talking about it, and all the jobs are asking for it. So I kind of tried to learn it with that in mind, but my context just didn't allow me to to learn it in the correct way. It was just syntax and clicking this button. I can just do it quicker manually. The need was not there to automate. So it's really, if they have no experience testing, I would say a good way to start is just kind of to read up on what testing is from the different various like ISTQB, maybe some of the context driven school stuff, just to get like a balance. And then when you kind of get an interview with the company, try and understand their culture and how they work. And they would either usually have either one of the two, definitely either like a waterfall approach or an agile approach, a heavy, maybe more scripting focused approach versus a more exploratory approach. So if you kind of cover both the basics, I think it's a good place to start. If I could go back, I would definitely not just stick rigidly to the ISTQB. I would consider my context a bit more as well. Yeah, I don't know if that really answers the question, to be honest. I'm really sorry, but if anyone else has suggestions.
Yeah, I agree with you, James. Again, it all depends on the job role. I was never a fan of automation, but kind of once I got into, I think the simplest tool out there is Selenium IDE. It's such an easy point and click automation tool to use, and you kind of get to see the CSS coding that goes along with it as well. And then I finally upgraded to doing everything on Cypress, which is a bit more manual, but again, it has the little IDE where you can see what's happening. It'll stop, it'll highlight where things have gone wrong. But again, it might not be someone's strongest strength. It's like, might be, yeah, your manual testing is good. With what you were saying before, is manual testing dead? Manual testing is dead. I would say no, because you still need that kind of user perspective, which I'd say is still part of the quality assurance for that kind of that pair of eyes. Is right, as a user, does it work as I would see it? No. Okay. How did you find that? Because I did it manually and I saw exactly what happened. So yeah, they kind of work in tandem. Automation testing, again, it's which one you feel most comfortable with. If you feel more comfortable just being manual, nothing, that's absolutely fine. That's great. If it's automation not for you, it's not for you. I mean, again, maybe over to Ashley's, again, from all the things you've kind of seen, would you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, I think obviously doing all you can to gain some outside knowledge yourself, doing courses is most you can do right now. And then I think being as engaged as you can on social networks like LinkedIn, that's where I think you'll end up finding the right role, because hiring managers are always going to pick someone off on LinkedIn that's coming across really well, has a great profile, is showing great experience. I think we spoke about this briefly last time as well, Miguel. So I couldn't recommend LinkedIn enough. I think with junior roles and entry-level roles, it's just waiting for them to come available because they get snapped up so quickly. But I think you're doing all you can right now. And my only advice would be, yeah, just make sure you're on LinkedIn, getting engaged in posts and getting your name out there.
I was going to ask as well a follow-up question to what you just mentioned. What would be good people to follow, or I don't know, leaders, technological leaders, QA leaders that are interesting to follow, useful and whatnot. Like, for example, the evil tester. As I said, I never heard about it before. Things like that, right?
There are thousands out there. As much as kind of like plug it in, I'll probably go on to the QABC Twitter account, have a look through the followers and following, and have a little look out for QA leaders or senior QAs. I get about 5 or 6 a day coming to follow our Twitter account, so I'd probably recommend that. I would suggest them, but I can't remember everybody. There are some good ones on there, which I always have a quick look at nosy at the profile before following back to make sure they're good. But yeah, have a little nosy through that, because there are literally hundreds. They're probably even more, lots more that we just don't know about yet.
Can need a database, right?
Yeah, not more databases, please. Yeah, that's got to be my first protocol. Or yeah, as I said, we got hundreds of like QA leads and senior QAs following the QABC Twitter account, so that point might be a good starting point for you.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you.
And me. Any more questions for anybody? This is what we're here for. Please, if you don't want to come on the mic, that's absolutely fine. Please ask in the chat channel as well. That's absolutely fine, and we'll respond to that too.
No question for me, but I'm just going to say thank you, James. That was really good and really insightful. Good presentation.
No worries. Pleasure was mine.
That was very informative. Really enjoyed that, and
Yeah,
glad that you definitely came along.
Thank you for the opportunity. It was really amazing. Thank you.
Okay, if we're all done, yeah, it's just so before, yeah, we've got our Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook accounts, and also we don't advertise it enough. We do have a Slack channel with QABC. The workspace is qabeginnersclub.slack.com. Probably the easiest thing is email us at qabcmcr@gmail.com, and I will send you an invite directly so you can come and join us on there. And I just want to say a massive thank you to James for coming along. That was really great. Really enjoyed that. And
No, thank you.
And again, I know I used to do music as well. I've done BA Tech Diploma. I can't remember what it's called now. It was that long ago. That's what brought me to Manchester. Thought I could make it. Yeah, here I am.
There's still time. There's still time.
I'll have that one-hit wonder. I'll have that one-hit wonder. Okay, and as I like to do this little segment, Jerry Springer style, final thought of the day. The glass, to the optimist, the glass is half full. To the pessimist, the glass is half empty. However, to a good tester, the glass is twice as big as it needs to be. Perspective, and you're welcome. Without further ado, again, thank you so much, James, for your time and your presentation today. That was amazing. And thank you technically to all those who attended today. And yeah, I will edit the video that nobody saw. So
yes.
again, thank you so much again for your time, James. And yeah, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening. See you.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.